Seems legit.
Hey Legitimates, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing another Empress because I am a little obsessed with this bag, but also because I wanted to teach you how to use a fabric panel to put in the front. The pattern only shows you how to do vinyl. This is the fabric option and I think it's fantastic. This pattern is currently on pre-order from Inklings and the Kraken. So this is the Praying Mantis one. And then on the inside of the bag, I have used the stunning coordinate fabric, which I just think makes this bag so much. I've put it on the inside this time because I normally put it on the outside, and I wanted to try a lot of different things today. So we have a fabric panel. We've done two rivets instead of one. I have put on a vinyl accent strip on top of our cargo pocket, and we did a zipper overlay as well, and I have used a rivet magnet for the top. This was a last minute addition. I was trying to use the other ones, but I just am obsessed with rivet magnets. So this bag has come out absolutely stunning. So let's go ahead and make it. Right, so I'm going to start with my middle centerpiece. I did just cut it out exactly the same as the pattern. It will be a little bit smaller. You can always add a seam allowance if you want it the exact same size. And then I've just got two straight strips of scrap. So this is kind of like the leftover bits. You won't see them, so it doesn't really matter, but I just thought the same coloring could definitely work in my favor. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the scrap right side up and then this right side down, and we just want to have it so that the curve is within the, so we just want to make sure that there's a little bit excess on that side. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to stitch and back stitch. And then I'm just going to follow the curve. Now, we could have cut a curve, but it's way more painful to pin that together. And for what we're using, this will work out better. And then we're going to get to the end and back stitch, because we don't want this to come apart. And then we're going to do the same to the other side. So like that, you just want to make sure that there's a little bit of fabric. We'll be cutting most of it off with the zigzag scissors in a minute. I'm going slow because I want to make sure I get the curve right. If you go too fast, you might miss. And if you go too slow, your stitches go funny, I have found. Alright, so now we've got this. This is what it looks like from the front. Please don't freak out. Zigzag scissors, which apparently mine fell on the floor. So what we're going to do now is from this side where you can see it, we're just going to cut along the zigzag. I'm just cutting the edge of the main panel. Now, because this is canvas, I only put a lightweight interfacing on the back of this, and I didn't put any interfacing on my little rectangles. If you're using just a normal cotton woven, you might want something a bit heavier, but this canvas is plenty heavy enough. So play that by ear, depending on what fabric you want to use. Because as always, I am not the boss of you. You can pretty much use any fabric. You could use a sequin fabric here. Just make sure you pick out the sequins first. Would be my big suggestion. I'm also going to chop off this excess that's hanging out. We don't need it. I could have used zigzag scissors. I just didn't. Right, so now we should be able to fold this curve, and I'm going to have to iron this. Right, but the curve should now come right on the edge, and now I've got no raw edge on the outside because we've got that seam there instead. So you just want to roll it over, and then I'm going to use my iron to iron. I'm going to steam press this down and you want it right on that edge. If you don't have zigzag scissors, you can just make little cuts with your snips. That will also work out really, really well. But that will give you a center panel, so you can use all of the beautiful panel pieces that you've purchased over time in the center of the bag without having any raw edges. I'm going to iron this, then we'll come back and continue. Right. So you can see, look how beautiful those edges are. And in the back, you've just got this excess. You can trim this down if you want to, but I really don't think it's going to affect all that much. So that choice is yours. It depends. If you've got like a weird bulky fabric, you can just trim it down so there's just a little bit. You just want to make sure that there's enough that you're going to catch it when we top stitch it. So take one of your main panels, and then it will still line up where it always did. It'll just be that little smidgy bit shorter, which is fine. Won't matter. I'm going to grab some clips, and I'm just going to kind of hold it in place with the clips at the top and the bottom. I will actually stitch it the whole way around because I don't like bits that kind of flap about, but it will hold it for now. So up to a 4 stitch length. And I'm just going to start up the top, or you can start at the bottom, whatever floats your boat. And I'm doing 1/8 of an inch stitching, like the pattern says for the original. And again, slow and steady is going to win this race. I'm going to pivot with my needle down so that I don't lose my space. In, pivot, and around we go. So I was going to put, instead of the vinyl here, I was going to put the fabric that matches this panel, but I always do that. So this was me doing something different. And because it's a textured and not a solid color, I think it still suits it quite well. And now your sole focus is on the panel and not the coordinating fabric around it. But we've put it inside, so you'll still see it because it's only a magnetic closure. That's a really cute panel. We've got no raw edges and we are good to go. You could quilt this bag if you wanted to. You can make the bag without any panel here. That's an option too. You get a lot of options actually. Alright, so while we're still on a pretty new bobbin, let's do our handles. Mine is stuck on my loop. And it's got fluff all over it. It happens. Alright, so I'm using my 3/4 inch tape, and I might put, I'll put it this down. Should be right. You can either put it in the center or down each edge. You get options. I'm going to peel the backing off. And then I'm just going to bring them together and then push it down. Now, if you have been following me for a long time, back in my older videos when I decided to do it this way, it took ages. But with practice, this actually works out quicker than folding each side one at a time. And because I'm pinching it together and then pushing it down, I get it pretty smack bang in the middle first go. It did take some practice though. So go watch my older videos if you want to watch me struggle. It's quite amusing. Now, little fun tip. I'm going to take my little Class A mini scissors. These were like $10 at a random quilt store. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a bit of a triangle into this part. What this is going to do is when I fold it over, it's going to prevent those like multi-layer extra bits that you just don't need. It doesn't have to be an incredibly big triangle. You just want to cut a bit. Doesn't have to be heaps. Like that. So now when I fold this over and I go to stitch the end, it all lines up beautifully. So we're going to stitch, back stitch, needle down and pivot, and then we're going to line up those edges. You'll notice I'm not clipping it. I prefer to just sew slowly and hold it in place a little bit at a time. It's no different to having to stop for the clips. Really. We're getting close to the end now. So this side always takes longer, but you should always do the open edge first. And I haven't decided if I'm putting strap ends on or not yet, so I'm making sure the ends are neat as well. This side should go much quicker. And then we're just going to trim off those tails. Now see how it's got like a bit of a twist? All you want to do is twist it in the opposite direction and kind of pull, and it straightens itself out. Magic trick, alright? Because I know if you're using a lighter weight vinyl, I know a lot of them tend to twist a lot. So twist in the opposite direction and then just kind of stretch it out. You'll feel it stretch a little bit, and then it stays perfectly where it's meant to. Obviously, we're not trying to pull as hard as humanly possible. You might break something or pull a muscle, so don't do that. But you'll feel it give, and as soon as it gives that little bit, it will be straighter. Depending on how curly it is, you might need to do it a second time and maybe pull a little bit harder. But that's dependent on what vinyl you're using. If you're using a really skinny one that likes to curl, you might need to do like extra twists in the opposite direction. Alright, so let's do the other one. If you're on a domestic machine and you still want to do these types of handles, what you can do is leave a little bit of a gap in between, like a smidgy little bit. And what it'll do is it'll help it fold over and not be as bulky on that edge. This machine can handle it, so I don't have to do it. But what I mean by a gap, I'll show you. You want to have like the tiniest little gap. So when you fold it in half, there's no bulk over here. That's perfect for a domestic machine. Especially if you've been struggling with your handles because they feel a bit too thick to put through your machine. Give it the little gap and then try. I think you'll find a great difference. When I do leather, I leave the gap because otherwise it's too thick. Okay, so again, we're going to fold over. I like to do the ends first. I don't know why. I like to do short ends first. They're quick and then just done. We're going to stitch, back stitch, needle down, pivot it round, and again, I'm just going to line it up together. Needle down, pivot, last side. And again, you can usually go a bit faster on this side because it can't move anymore. Back stitch. Trim off all the tails. And what have we got? See, it's just got like the tiniest bit. But it doesn't matter how many times you wrap it in the opposite direction. It will still straighten itself out. I love that trick. Alright, we're going to put our handles aside now. I'm just doing all the individual pieces. First, what I want to do, now because this is canvas, I didn't put any interfacing on it because it's beautifully stiff enough all by itself. The inside of the bag is going to look epic. Because this is a busy print, I have also decided that we're going to do a zipper overlay just to kind of help it stand out a little bit where the zip is. I thought it would just be like a nice contrast because I love doing that. Alright, so here is my zipper pocket. I've already drawn my rectangle. So on the, when you fold it in half, the half that the rectangle is, you want to find center bottom because it will help. Right, and I'm going to find center bottom of the main panel as well because this is the easiest way to line anything up. If you want to, you can in fact do like a finger press fold. I wouldn't go steam that, we don't need it forever. But just to line up where the pocket's going to go. Now I'm going to eyeball this because I tend to eyeball them all the same. What you need to remember is you're going to have a magnetic snap closure, so don't put it too high. And also I've got the zipper overlay, so I need it down a little bit more than the pattern says because I'm altering the pattern. So there's fine for me. I'm going to go back to a 2.5 stitch length. Everybody's basic stitch length is a bit different, but domestics will always open. If you've got a computerized domestic, when you turn it on, it's usually between 2.4 and 2.6, which is why I do 2.5. I know Sandra from the Garner Sewing Room does 3.5. Each to their own. I just like this one. So I'm just stitching the 2 long lines. I used to stitch the short edges, but it turns out it's just not necessary. Oh my gosh, come off. We're going to also snip the jump stitch here because it will affect how we turn through our pocket. Trim the tails, trim the jump stitches. Everyone's happy. Now before you go cutting, make sure that it's straight. Several times and on video, it has moved, and so the pocket tends to be on like some weird angle. That's not what we want. I mean, if it is what you want, you can leave it. It's not what I want. So I'm just gonna bring this to the edge of the table so I can pinch it and do a little snip in the center of the 2 lines. Now, it doesn't have to be perfectly center. It's just as close to center as you can eyeball. I'm never too far off, but I'm also not exactly on either. These scissors are also curved, makes it way harder to do like a dead straight in the center line. And yet I don't change because it doesn't really matter. Now I'm going to go and push this through and iron it all flat so that we can continue. Right, so it's all ironed super flat. I've steamed it because it is canvas and otherwise it wouldn't sit as flat if you don't steam it. And now I've got a piece of zipper tape. So we're just going to crack the end. And then I'm going to feed the zipper on. I put 1/2 in and then I kind of pinch underneath it to put the other one in. Which won't go apparently. Lucky me. And then I'm hoping that that will go on. Ah, beautiful. So I don't like to put it too far in. Generally speaking, I like to just put it like 1/3 of the way in. It doesn't always work out like that, but I try. Zipper overlay. I do plan on getting these done up as an SVG that you can purchase. Me and SVGs aren't really friends at the moment, so you're going to have to bear with me on that. And snip. I'm going to peel off the backing. This is 1/4" tape, if anybody wants to know the size. These are the terrible ones, which are rippable. I shouldn't say terrible. It sounds like terrible, and they're not. They're amazing. So I'm just going to stick it down like that. And the double-sided tape allows me to pick it up and throw it around, basically. Now I want to make sure that none of the pocket is going to be under where I'm stitching. I'm going to go back up to a 4 because I think that's pretty. And I'm going to pull some tails to make sure I can just kind of tie it off. And I never start in the corner. Lots of rules for this. And it needs to shift just slightly over. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start just off from the corner. And I'm going to stitch. And then when I get close to this edge, I'm going to use my thumb and push that other fabric down out of the way. Now these are rounded edges, so you might want to manually stitch them so that they look pretty. You don't have to. I'm not going to force you to, obviously. But I do it so that I get nicer, rounder edges. And then we're going to push all of this up out of the way. And now that I've got this here, I can come to the back. I'm going to pull on it, and it's going to create a loop. Because I have no fake nails anymore, we're going to use the sewing awl to pull it out. Oops! Dropping everything over here. And tie it off. Oh, my child's awake. Right, I've tied it off and trimmed off the edges. Let us continue around. I turned the thing off, my bad. My engine always takes like a second. There we go. As we get closer, again, I'm going to push with my thumb all of that fabric out of the way. If you do accidentally stitch it, it's probably not the end of the world, but this just makes it nicer, really. So just constantly pushing it out the way, which sounds harsh. Alright, so I'm nearly back to the start. I'm going to go into that first hole, like that, and then pull it out and trim it with some tail so that I can pull on this one and then grab the loop with the sew. I don't even try with my fingers anymore. I used to do it with the snips, but one too many times I have accidentally cut it because it was a bit firmer and didn't want to slide through as easy. And then you've got to try and tie it off with like a tiny little end. I don't like doing that. So, trim that off. And now this is completely free all the way around. You could probably stitch down those little triangles if you want to. That won't affect anything. Right. Now we're going to put our zipper in. So we just lay it down the way you want it. So I always have mine closing to the left. Might not be for everyone, but it is consistent with all bags that I do. Closing to the left is my jam. So now I'm going to line up the edge of the zip with the edge of the pocket piece. And I'm going to start in front of the zipper. Now, if this kind of fiddliness isn't for you, you can just use double-sided tape in it and put it where it needs to be, but clearly I'm not doing that. So, stitch, because again, we're going to do that tie-off thing so it looks neat and pretty. I am all about the pretty. And because this is nylon zipper tape, I can just sew over the teeth. Now that I'm here, I might stop and pull it through using the sew awl to pull that out. Tie it off, do it again. I like to make sure it's very secure. You don't want this falling out. Once you've finished the bag, you're going to have to hand stitch it back in if it falls out, and nobody likes hand stitching. Well, at least I don't. I'll do it when I have to. Doesn't mean I enjoy it. I enjoy the finished product though, which is why I do it at all. Needle down, pivot, over the end, back, And then I'm going to go back into that first hole. I always put the foot down to continue turning. It keeps the tension good. Trim the tails nice and long. Flip it over. Pull on it. It's got a really big loop already, which is potentially helpful. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's the wrong loop, like that one just was. But if you have loops at the back, if you kind of tug on these gently, it will fix that, which is nice. And then I'm just going to tie it around and around and on. You don't have to do a Tory pocket for this. If you prefer the options where you have a facing, you can just replace all pockets with the style that you like. I'm not the boss of you, and it won't make a difference to the bag if you want to do a facing version versus a Tory pocket version. Like, whatever you prefer to do, just do that. You can even make these pockets bigger because this is a bigger bag. You have the option to make the pocket like about that much bigger if you wanted to. Now I'm just going to stitch the sides and not the bottom because we'll be turning stuff through there later. I'm also back on a 2.5 stitch length, which is my joining stitch length, because we're joining things. Line up those bottoms. We're going to stitch and back stitch like so. And then I'm also going to trim off those tails because tails later on just get in the way. They really do. So now we've got our beautiful zipper pocket, and that side is done. Let's move on to the other side. I'm trying to do stuff differently in this one, so that's why we ended up with the beautiful little extra bit. So here's my fabric pocket. Now, because this is directional, depending on how much you care, this is busy enough it's not going to matter. But if you had directional fabric and it was obvious, like it was just like a cat face or something really, really big, what you could do is fold it over and cut it right here. In fact, let's do it. Why not? We're just going to do it. So if you've got directional fabric, instead of cutting on the fold, you can actually just cut there. It just means your pocket will be that tiny bit shorter. But because we're putting this on, it'll actually probably work out the same size. Right, so that's in half. So now we're going to put right side up. Against right side up, like this. Now, because I've got this edge, we're not going to stitch the top edge at all. We're just going to leave it blank, and I'm going to stitch all the way around. Now, me and my perfect folded in half wasn't quite as perfect, but again, that's fine. That was my bad. So, this is the top, and I just want to double check. That's the top. So, I'm just going to stitch a 1/4 inch all the way around the other 3 edges, leaving the top open because I'm doing the little bit. If you're not adding this bit, just leave a gap in the top and make sure you stitch the rest of it. Pivot. Needle down, pivot, up, back stitch, happy days. And we're going to get rid of the tails at the other end as well. Now I'm going to turn this through and iron it, but before I do, we are going to chop off the excess at the corners. Now again, this is canvas, so I haven't interfaced it because it is sturdy enough all by itself. I'm also going to chop off that excess because we don't really need that there. And then off the corner, like so. I'm going to trim here, and I'm going to trim there. This will just help with the turning and everything sitting nicely. Poke the corners out as best I can. And you should now have, see how that corner's not out? See how it's not a nice crisp corner? I'm going to grab my sewel, and I'm literally going to dig it out. So I push this in, and then I'm just going to gently unfurl it. Don't do it too hard. You can damage your thing. You can rip stitches, you can pull threads, so you just want to do this gently. This is a gentle process. I have learnt the hard way one too many times that if you pull too hard, you'll damage something. But see how that's much crispier? It's still not perfectly pointed, but once we iron it, it'll be pretty close. So we're going to iron this so that all the seams are lined up and flat. We are all ironed and beautiful. So now I'm going to take this piece. Now this is, I cut it the same as the template lengthwise, so it will be a little bit longer, but because it's vinyl, we can just chop it off. This can be any non-fraying material. So you could do it in like thick backed waterproof canvas. You could do it in cork, vinyl, I mean clear plastic, but that would be a weird power move on that one. And what I'm doing is I'm folding it in half and just creating a crease. Now this is not going to work as well with my fingers as when I had fake nails, because it was essentially like a big piece of plastic scraping across it, but I'm hoping that it will be enough. So you can now see how there's now a crease? We're going to go up to a 4 stitch length, like always. And then I'm just going to slot this. There's a little fray, see a little fray bit? So I'm going to chop them off. I don't want them poking out the end, that's weird. So the fold goes directly on the edge. And so now when I top stitch it, it should get both sides evenly. So I'm going to do it 1/8 of an inch up from the lower edge. Possibly should have taped this down, but too late now. We're off. So I'm just folding it at the seam, working my way across. And the reason I'm doing this edge is because the print is busy and I want to be able to see the top of my pocket. That's pretty much the only reason. I like accents. And now it will match the accent around the zipper. Vinyl scissors to chop off the excess. Cut off the tails. These are getting blunt. Ta-da! Now we're still going to turn this into a cargo pocket, but if you wanted to, you could literally put this as a slip pocket and then just kind of divide it out. I just don't want to do that. And it doesn't really matter which side you think is the top either, because they're both much of a muchness. Now that they're both up the right way, it's not something you overly have to think about anymore. So I'm going to fold this in half and put a crease there. If you want to, get something plastic to really, that crease is important. That's what we're going to stitch. So when it's easier to see, it's easier to sew. So again, fold it in half, again with the crease. I can now see where this lines up with this right there. I'm going to throw that little bit out so we don't need it. Move all of this out of my way. And I'm going to start at the bottom. And a stitch and back stitch. And then if you can't do it with just a fold, what you could have done instead is draw it on with something removable, like a chalk pen or a friction pen. I don't know if I would have seen it all that much on this, but you never know. And then I flip it over to make sure my line's straight, because that's also important. Now I like to, and different people do this different ways, I'm going to take a ruler. I'll see if it'll mark. Oh, the chalk pen might work. So I'm going to measure out 1 inch from the center. Now, if you want chunkier, thicker, like if you're going to put really thick stuff in your bag, you make this mark longer. I'm doing 1 inch, but you could do 1.5 inch, or if you just want like a tiny little bit, you could make it less and do like 3/4 of an inch. World's your oyster and all that jazz. So what we're going to do with that mark, we're going to bring that mark to the center point like that. And I'm going to put a clip there so it doesn't move while I do the other side. So they should both, those marks, meet up at that stitch line. You just bring it in. And if you need to, go and steam this with like a shot of steam in your iron to make it stay where it's told. But that's the idea. Now, if you wanted to, you could stitch this edge. I don't want to, but you could, is all I'm saying. So we're going to start with this side, and I'm going to line up this edge so it's straight. I don't care about what's going on here. Don't worry about that bit. That bit's irrelevant. We need a straight. This needs to be in line with this, which is like that. So it needs to be straight here and straight there. If you need to, rule some lines to make them be straight. Otherwise you're gonna have wonky pockets. So we're gonna stitch, we're gonna back stitch. I'm gonna go down that edge into the corner. I'm gonna remove that clip. And I'm gonna actually back stitch in that corner just to make sure it stays where it's told. I'm gonna needle down, and then I'm gonna come and straighten up this edge. Now again, if that is a little bit too hard for your brain, that's totally okay, I get it. Draw lines. Work out where the lines go and just draw the lines. So this just needs to be the same, and that's how you work out if it's straight or not, without drawing lines. Again, I've been sewing for so long that I can do that by eyeball, but you could also check it from the back. If these lines are kind of coming out or coming in, you're gonna have to unpick them. But I'm pretty happy with that. For an eyeball, that's pretty good. And even though the print's busy, now that I've got that little edge, see how it just gives it a little something extra? I could have also done this pocket in like a plain color, but that doesn't really sound like me either. If we're honest, I like it. Trim the tail off. So now we have cargo pockets. If you wish, you can really crease these so that they sit flatter. So you put them like this, and then again with my little bit of plastic, kind of crease it. I don't know how you're gonna do this part. And again, you could have stitched them, but that's flat enough for me, so that's fabulous. Let's grab our other side. And we're going to do right sides together on a 2.5 stitch length, and I'm going to stitch both sides together. So I'm going to stitch and I'm going to back stitch, because we always stitch and back stitch. And there. It took me some time with my nails gone to get used to putting my fingers so close. I've always been paranoid that I'm gonna like sew my finger. But I am slowly getting used to it. So we're gonna just sew the two edges together like this. And then I'm gonna take some scissors and I'm gonna cut off most of the excess. One, flip her over, other side. Doesn't have to be perfect, we're just cutting out some of the bulk. Now I'm not quite finished with this yet. This is not in the pattern, but we're just adding it because I want to. I'm going to take some double-sided tape. This is a 1-inch piece by 6 inches. And I'm going to tell you this because it's not the pattern and I'm making it up. And then I've put 3/4 inch tape. We're going to peel off the back. We're going to fold it in. So you can either fold it both into the center or fold it in half. Because it's 1/2 inch, I am actually going to just fold it in half. Which means I probably could have used a thinner piece of tape. Whatever. I'm cool. You also want to make sure your edges join up. And I'm just going to stitch, actually, I'm going to put this, slide this on. So this is a little 1/2 inch swivel clip. Okay, I've changed my mind. In half's not going to work for me because, see how it's white? If it was like black with a black backing, that would be different. But I've changed my mind. So we're just going to open this out. Don't be afraid to change your mind. I just don't like the side. Yes, I could edge paint it, but that's, you know, more time consuming. I just need to pick off this because it's no longer sticky enough. So I'm going to take that off. I'm now going to fold them into the center. So I'm going to put another piece of tape down the center. And I'm just going to do what I was originally going to do. I shouldn't have changed my mind. Right, try that again. I've already got the crease line at least. So that's good. And I know it's tiny, which is why I wasn't going to do it. But there's method to my madness. And this tape is sticky enough that it'll hold it anyway. So I'm not even worried about that. Right, so it's still 1/2 inch. It's still the same size as it was. It's just there's not going to be any raw edges now. So I'm going to feed this into the center. I'm going to fold it over like this. And then I'm just going to top stitch down, across, and up. Alright, so putting them together. Sorry, I had a phone call from my husband who's currently in a different state. So we're just going to sew them. We're going to sew down one side and then across and then up. I'm not worried about the little bit around here because I'm going to try and stitch as close to that as possible. But this is like a little key hook so that you can attach your keys inside your bag. Just if you're wondering what we're doing. So I'm going to go up to a 4 stitch length. Turn my machine back on. Now this you're going to want to do really slowly because it is only skinny. And you want to try and get as close to the metal as you can without breaking a needle. Because if you're as close as you can, then it won't be able to unravel at all. You could also do this out of fabric if you wanted to. You could also do this single layer and then just fold over a little bit. But I'm pretty happy with that. It's nice and sturdy. It's close, but it can still kind of move. And then I'm just going to put it slightly off to the side. Now, there's a loop. Hold on. Cut them out. I probably don't need it that high. That's probably a bit too low. So I'm just going to have some of it hang over the edge. And I can tell you how much there is. I'm eyeballing it, but it should be... It's about 2 inches from the end of the fabricy part, the vinyl, to the edge. I'm just eyeballing it, and it is 1 3/4 from the side seam. I don't want it too in the center, but I also don't want it too off. I don't want it directly at the side. I kind of just want it over that direction. But again, you can put that wherever you want. This is just an added bonus, and I'm going to cut off the excess. Okay. Base piece. Now, this is directional. So, the back, the zipper pocket for me is always the back. So the back piece needs to have the top of the base piece. So I'm just going to fold it in half and put little marks in the center. This is going to help for later when we sew it all together, because right now we're just going to attach it. And that's mainly so that I've got less pieces lying around. So the piece with the zipper pocket will have the top of the pattern, and I'm going to line up those pieces there, and I'm just going to stitch the straight edge. So I'm not stitching all the way around, which is why I'm not pinning the whole thing. We're also going to go to a joining stitch length. Alright, just the straight bit like that. And the reason for that is because it's much easier to turn the bag through the entire bottom, because it's attached, but I essentially have the whole space to turn the bag through, and that will be easier later. So I'm going to turn that right sides out. because I'll be slipping it into the outside soon. And it looks amazing. So you get your cargo pockets, your zipper pocket, you've got your little key tab. You could also, if you don't want to use a D-ring, you can a swivel clip. If you already have a clip on your keys, you could just put a D-ring to attach it to. It goes either way. But on the off chance that they don't have one, I'm using the swivel clip, and also because I have like 100 in each color sitting in my house. I'm not even over exaggerating. There's about 100. I bought them in bulk. Okay, we're gonna do all the hardware-y bits now. So, it's a clicky one. I always forget which one's which. Alright. Lines from the edge. We also need to find the center. Fold in half. Pinch it. Do a small snip. We're going to do the same to the other side. So there's the center. We're going to go in at each edge. Now, the pattern has the markings for the feet, if you're interested. I know that's a lot, but you can also just use the template. Then you don't have to rule them all. But if you also like to do your own thing, that's a good way to work it out. Hole punch. I'm just going to punch where everything intersects, because that makes the most sense. I'm putting 5 bag feet, just because I can. Oh, this has got the wrong attachment in it. I want to do a video soon on all the attachments that I have, because this box is getting quite full of all the different ones, if I'm being honest. They go in there. And I use them so frequently that I can actually look and tell you which set's which. I don't need to have it labeled or anything. But that's just because, again, I use them so often. Alright, we're going to push, whoa! We're going to drop stuff, because, you know, true Tory fashion. And we're going to push all of the posts up from the bottom. Now, I love the dome bag feet. They're not for everyone. You can get a whole bunch of different types. You can also get screw-ins. If you don't have one of these presses, it doesn't mean you have to go without feet. There are a lot of screw-in options. I just don't have them. One day I'll get some, and I'll do a video with them. But not today. I'm just squishing them down. You kind of feel it go down, and then I like to kind of try and pull them off. If they can be pulled off, then they're going to fall off later. They should all be fine. Sometimes the post isn't long enough and they try and fall. So I just like to check. We're down to just a few pieces. These are our strap connectors. Now, with this bag, you have options. I'm going to do another one soon, so, you know, all the different options can be done, and I can show you how to alter patterns. But in the meantime, these are the strap connectors that come with it. If you have purchased the strap connectors from me, you can use any of those in place of this shape if you don't like the triangle pointy end. You can do... I think I'm out at the moment, but I'm getting a new template guy. But you can get all of the strap connectors in different shapes that I had someone draw up. So I have all of these different shaped ends that you could do in place of the standard triangle. You could do round ones, you could do like ovally ones. There's a bunch of funky shapes there. So you can literally just exchange this shape for any of those, and that would work too. Now I'm putting 1/4 inch double-sided tape along each of the sides here. Of which it's going to look amazing. And it's just easier to stick them down. You can pin them in place, but this, I promise, it's easier to do it this way. So, I'm going to peel the backing off with my very small amount of free edge on my fingernails. I'm letting the fake nail space grow out before I even attempt to do anything because they're too fragile to do much. So we're going to fold it all the way so that it's like smooth and there's no sticky outy bit. And so then this will go on here and it will tuck under like so. And that's what it'll look like. If you've got really stubborn vinyl, you can add clips to it to help hold it in place until you're ready to use that particular one. I have a sneaking suspicion this will need clips because it is quite thick and quite firm and it doesn't really like to be told what to do. I know that. So you just add right on the edge some clips. Just while you get to the other ones. Come on. Another thing, if you have an embroidery machine, you can actually use key fobs in place of these as well. I'll do that in a video one day too. I have done it before on custom order bags. You can literally just, instead of these, you do a key fob and then you just cut around the top bit a bit thicker so that it'll hold your hardware. Looks very cool. I do it a lot for D-rings on the side of bags as well because it gives like an extra detail there. I might see if I can find a cool Halloween design to do. I'm sure I've got one somewhere floating around. Alright, so then we're going to feed that on, fold it over. So I want to have enough of the straight folded over part so I can sew across there first and then go around. So you don't want it perfectly down like that. That's actually too far. You need to have a little bit of the straight part so that you can sew it in place. Then I'll clip it in place. So just enough that you'll stitch it all down before going around everywhere. And I always do it from the front so that I can see and make sure that they're all looking as even as possible. Also important. We want it to look good. And we want them to look the same, if you can manage it. And 2. There we go. And just to make my life a little bit easier, again, I am going to use some more double-sided tape right down the center. It's going to hold everything in place. And help me. It's going to help hold this down. And when I attach it to the bag, it's going to help it stay in place and not slip while I sew around it. And I like to do it in the whole batch and do it all at once so that I don't have to keep picking up and putting this down. I can kind of just put it away. And that helps me. Right. Done. Not that bit. So the back is just plain. You can add a zipper pocket here if you want to, or you could do this on both sides. If you've got 2 panels, you could put 2 different panels on each side. or 2 of the same panels, or you could have, I could, if I wanted to, just put some of the inside fabric as a panel on the back. So it would look like have this down the center, which would also look very, very cool. Good options. I want to find the center top and center bottom because it's easy to do it now rather than later. I'll do the same to this piece. Now with your strap attachment adjusty, these things, connectors, that's the word I want. Strap connectors. With your strap connectors, if you have done embroidery on this panel and where we've got these doesn't suit you, you can just move them in or out as you please. We have that option. So I am going to go from the center. I'm going to pick off the backing of one of these, and then I'm going to line it up right there. So that's where my first one's going to go. And I'm going to stitch them one at a time, and then I'm going to redo it. So remember, whatever marking you're doing, try to remember it, or you could like write it on there. So I'm going to stitch and back stitch. You can also, if you prefer, pull it through and tie it off at the back. You could also do these in a different color so that they stand out instead of blend in. It's always a fun option. And I'm just going to fold this so it doesn't hit everything that I've got going on over there. And then when you get back to the start, back stitch. Or again, pull it off and tie it through. I'm not super worried about that today. The thread blends in quite nicely. So let's do the other side. We're going to grab another one. And we always start with this side in case you need to alter them at all. Clear up my space. There's the center there. And there. And then you want to make sure everything's lined up nicely, just to be sure. And so again, I'm going to start, I always like to go along next to the hardware first, because then I won't overstitch when going on the other edges. Needle down, pivot. I'm also going to put rivets in these because I think it looks pretty and gives like another layer of protection. Now I can see that this has skipped a few stitches over in this corner. So what I'm actually going to do is come back over here, put my needle down, and then I'm going to sew upwards to make sure. What happens sometimes is your hardware gets in the way so it can't do the stitching properly. And it skips like the corner part. It happens quite regularly to me on this machine. So what you do is you just stitch there and then you turn around and stitch towards the hill. So you go up the hill, not down the hill. It's one of the few times that works in your favor. But we now have strap connectors. Grab the back. Now I haven't put my logo anywhere yet. And I think I want to embroider it. So I might embroider it on the back in a minute. I'm going to put the strap connectors on first because I'm already here. And then I might pause the video and go and put my logo on. My logo is about 2 inches. But I want to put these on first, and then I might put it kind of in the center and down a little bit. I'll do it in green so it's not like stupidly in your face. I don't like my logo. If I'm going to embroider the logo, I like it less in your face, I guess. I used to put it on the base, but all my friends told me off for that because I should proudly show off my thing. But the main reason I put it on the base was so that it wasn't taking focus away from the gloriousness of the bag. Like, I would prefer my work to shine through rather than just my logo, but I do see their point about putting it on the base. So I'm going to put it on the back after I've put on the straps so that I know exactly where to put it so it looks balanced and nice. I also won't put it on the front because it'll take away from the panel, and I don't want that either. I want the panel to be like the main focus of the bag. Otherwise, why do a panel at all? Put it up against there, stick it down. Another option that I could do is I could embroider onto a piece of vinyl and then stitch the vinyl on. That is an option that does work a lot of the time. And you could either do it in the same color vinyl or have it as a different shade, but that'll make it stand out more. So just millions of options. I could have done a fabric tag on the inside, of which technically I still could. I could just unstitch a space and shove the tag in and stitch it close again. I could put the tag in the zipper pocket, because technically I've still got a little bit to undo. Alright, there's those. Let's put some rivets in, because I want to and I think it'll be pretty. Now, the rivet spacing template is also, where is it? There it is also handy right now because it will help you line it up in the center and exactly where you want it. So, I'm just going to grab a pen. I'm going to put this up and I'm going to do, I mean, realistically, you've got options, but I'm going to do 1/2 inch down from the edge so that they're all uniformly the same. Now, usually I can eyeball that, but I don't necessarily need to because I've got the rivet spacing templates and I love them. So grab the other one. I'm going to do the same thing on here. So I'm going to do 1/2 inch down in the center. Hang them back up because I like to keep my stuff relatively organized. Even though it's always chaos in here, I still try. Alright, so I'm going to stab that through 2, 3, and 4, and then flip it over and push it down until you feel it grab. I get alternating rivet sizes. So I've got a 10 mil, this is 10 mil rivet, which means it won't hold the rivets up the top necessarily. If I'm using 9s, it'll slip out. So I prefer to just clip them together like this and then squish it with this. This is looking really nice. Alright, I'm going to just pause the video and put my logo right about here because I think that'll be a nice place to put it, and then we can continue. The logo is on. I did it subtle, so it's green on green, but it's still there. Okay. Now this is one of those times I am going to use clips. We're just going to clip the sides together. I love my glitter clips. They make me so happy. If you're in America, these are from the Ghana Sewing Room. If you want some. Obviously I got green ones. Pretty sure they come in other colours though. Alright, joining stitch length. Oops. Back stitch. We'll be running out of bobbin thread soon, I imagine. We're still on the first one, which was a full one. But this is the M40. So you don't get as much as the skinnier thread. Okay, so now that I've done that, we're going to grab the vinyl scissors, which are my Class A ones, and we're just going to trim down the excess. This is especially important not to skip if you're on a domestic, because it'll make the seams less bulky. It's also why we don't put the key connector that we just added to the pattern right at that seam, because it'll be too bulky. We're going to grab our bottom. Now this doesn't have a top or a bottom because it's just textured and not printed, but if it did, just think about which way you need to put it in. A little bit of chaos. And then I'm going to clip it in the center, which is why we always find the center of everything. And I'm just going to do the straight part. Alright, so I've gone straight part to straight part, and then I'm going to come across and do the opposite side. And I'm making all of the clips face the lot. Actually, let's do something different. Let's see if I can sew it the other way. I haven't tried that in a while. I personally prefer to sew it this side up, but in the spirit of doing things differently today, let's just try it. I am going to spin all of my clips though, so that they hold where I tell them to. If you need to find the end, do that too. Clip around. I haven't done it this way in so long. This might be a disaster, guys. I can't promise that it won't be. We want to do the center top point and then work the rest in. Okay, let's try it this way out. This should be interesting, but again, you know, it's always fun to try new things. Don't be scared of them. Alright, stitch, back stitch. I also want to make sure I tuck my arms in so I don't hurt myself. Ugh, I just ran out of bobbin. Alright, we're just going to go back to the start because I only got about 2 inches, so we'll just pretend like we got nothing. Go back to the start, stitch our way along. And when we get to the curve, you just want to make sure that it's not in the seam allowance part. It's a lot of pushing and prodding. It's not actually that bad to do it with this side up. I thought it was going to be much more tricky, to be honest. I kind of like it. Maybe we'll do it this way for a month or 2 and see if I get better at it. I'm just going to stop and clean up my clips and then do the next curve. I feel like it would be easier this way if I was doing, what's it called, piping. And backstitch when we get back to the start, and then we're going to check it from the bottom. Oh, it's pretty good. Pretty good. Scissors, you can use any scissors. I grabbed the zigzag ones because I like zigzag scissors. It's going to get real chunky here. So chunky that it won't cut. It's alright. Just grab the other ones. don't need zigzags on a straight anyway. The zigzag's more for curves, and even then, you could just do it with straight scissors at the moment. It wouldn't really matter, I should not think. But we cut this down so that the bag will fit together better later. We have this much seam allowance. The reason we put this much seam allowance is so that you've got a little bit of wiggle room. If we did everything at a 1/4 inch, there's no wiggle room for mistakes. It makes it much harder to sew it. So, that's why we do it. Anyway, this piece is my back, and I want my zipper pocket at the back, so we're going to flip it and put it in this way. Keeping in mind that the whole base is open, don't even stress about it. I know we didn't sew it shut, but this will be way quicker to turn the bag through than any other way. And we attach it just because it makes my brain feel a bit better. You could actually just leave it off. But I like it to have some kind of stability going on. Now I'm just clipping each side, and then I'm going to come and line up the curve. Now be careful with the curve, because the curve will want to try and stretch your fabric and pretend like it doesn't fit, except it does fit. Don't let it tell you any different. I'm having all of my clips face the inside because that's the way I'm stitching. Also having the urge to go and play with my other machine on camera, so that will probably happen, not today, but soon. More clips. So again, curve, curve. They fit because we use the same pattern piece to cut them all. Just sometimes at the moment, this side, the pocket is kind of trying to push the fabric to pretend like it doesn't fit. It doesn't get to make that decision because I know that it does fit. And then a couple of clips up on this side as well. And we're good. It's a lot of clips. You could probably do this without clips, but I'm not feeling that today. So I'm just going to start here. And we're going to stitch, and we're going to back stitch. You don't have to start in the center part. You can kind of just start wherever you feel comfortable. Now the seam here is 1/2 inch, which I am sewing. However, if you were inclined to do 3/8 of an inch, it would not change the pattern. It would be like the tiniest bit taller. It wouldn't affect it in a negative way if that's what you decided you wanted to do. Just so you know, like if 1/2 inch is too hard to kind of measure out and you're more comfortable with 3/8 because the other patterns do it, you can do that. Any seam allowance you do at the top is fine, so long as it's consistent the whole way around. You don't want to do 1/2 inch on one side and, you know, 1/4 inch, because it'll make the top of the bag wonky. Beyond that, world is your oyster. Stop with the needle down every time you want to reposition. I have to keep remembering to tuck my arms in. Now this is a thick bit here, and I am in fact going to backstitch because that's where the keys are, and I just want it to be extra strong. And backstitch. Da, da, da. I'm also going to come over to where the key part is, and I'm just going to do some extra stitching because I really don't want it to fall off. That would just wreck my day. Because you never know how crazy heavy someone's roll of keys are. Right, now we need our zipper, not zipper scissors, Jesus, zigzag scissors. And specifically, you want to cut the curvy part. And you want to get close to the stitches. You also want to cut this off. It'll be easy to top stitch with less bulkiness going on. But you also want to do that so that it'll sit nicely. It's very important it sits nicely. It's kind of my whole jam. So I'm just going to cut the curvy parts with these scissors, and then I'll switch to normal scissors for the other bits. And I am aware I have not yet put and installed my, what's it called? Nah, can't think of the word now. Magnet. Brain is fried. Just can't think of words today. Anyway, chop off that bit and the other side. Now the reason we're using the bigger scissors is because of the key holder, and the side seams get a bit chunky, and that just makes it easier. So now we're up to turning the bag through, which should be super crazy easy because we've got the whole base to turn it through. So I'm just going to grab a corner and push it through. This is really nice vinyl. It's firm but pliable. I like it. I wonder what other colours it comes in. I might have to check that. Alright, I'll push out all the cornery bits and all the, well, it's not really a corner, it's a curve though. So what I want to do is I just want to make sure it's going to sit properly and nothing's pinching or carrying on. Normally I would do this at the end, but it seems to be pretty pliable right now. Okay, we have an issue. See how it's pinched? We're going to fix it because that's not staying. I will not accept pinching, even though I've trimmed it and everything, which I probably should have checked beforehand, and I normally do, funnily enough. Where's that pinch? I can't even see it from this side. Alright, there it is. So, we're just going to stitch, back stitch, and I reckon I can fix this without having to... Actually, no, I will. I'll unpick the 4 stitches that are the problem. Otherwise, I might make the pinch bigger. So I'm just literally cutting the stitches out. And then you might need to use your sew awl to kind of pull them out properly because they're being stubborn. I will not stand for bad stitching when I can fix it. If it was unfixable, that's a different problem, but it's not. Whoops. Let's see if I fixed that. I think I did. I did. Alright, now there's no pinching. So I just undid it and restitched it without the pinching. Oh, this looks really pretty. Alright. I feel better about that. So that's the back. That's the front. Now we're going to undo the zipper pocket. And we're going to grab all this lining and pull it through the zipper pocket. The whole lot. So that we can stitch it down. So here's the center. And here's the center. So clip it in place. I'm not going to do a lot of clips because I can freeform it, but if you wanted to clip the whole thing, you definitely can. I am not one to stop you. I'm just going to clip a little bit so that it stays in line, and then I'm going to start where I left off here. Stitch, back stitch. Then I'm just going to hold it and pretend my hands are clips to get around that curve. Alright, we just do it slowly and in pieces. And And then we want to flip this bag so that we're not fighting any of it. And then this is all clipped together, so we know that this bit's fine. Stop with the needle down. Then I'm going to hold this at the angle that it needs. And then again, just sew around the curve. And then you want to check it from the other side to make sure nothing pinched, which it did right there. I thought it did. So again, with the pinching, it's literally, it's 2 stitches, but we're gonna just undo about 6 so that I can work that curve pinchy part out. So I'll just start back a little bit, then I'll hold it so it doesn't do it again. And that's it. Done. More zigzag scissors. And yes, I'm aware that they're called kinking shears. For anyone that's new here, I know what they're called. It's more fun to call them zigzag scissors. Cutting along, making sure we're not cutting the stitches though, but we want to cut off this excess because it'll help the bag sit inside nicer. Done. And then we can shove all of that back through the pocket. So you can either install your magnet now, but I'm actually going to top stitch first and then I'll install the magnet. Now here might be a bit thick, so if you're worried, grab your pliers and squish that seam. They might not feel like they do much, but I promise that they do. So I'm just going to fold all of this over to make sure that the seam's sitting where we want it to, especially on this curve here. It's quite easy for it to get kind of tucked under. I'm also going to squish that to make it more flat, like so. And then we're just going around again. Wherever there's a seam, this doesn't really need it. I can sew this without squishing it, but if you make a lot of bags, please go and buy them. They are amazing and they will make a difference, especially if you're a domestic machine bag maker. The difference it makes on how to squish the seam to make them sewable is phenomenal. It's worth it, I promise. I actually think I want to use a rivet magnet and have the gold on the outside. I have here a normal magnet, which I am trying to get rid of. I don't plan on using them forever in my future because I'm just obsessed with rivet magnets. But I'm actually thinking I want the little gold accent, so I'm going to use a rivet magnet. We also want to make sure that this is folded down. So this is, again, where you're going to want to squish it. So I'll do everything around it. Oh, this looks so pretty. I really love this fabric, and it's probably because it's green and I just don't even care. It's amazing. Okay, so this little bad boy, you could stitch it so it's up, but we don't want to do that. We want to stitch it so it sits down where it's told, right? But that looks really, really thick. I mean, it is. It doesn't look, it just is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this, and as hard as my hands can squeeze, and I use 2 hands, and I always make sure I'm at the edge as well, we're going to squeeze it. And I promise that has already made it much, much flatter. But I want that to sit down. Now, if you're worried about how thick that is, just do it a single one and loop it up the bottom. Or you could do it out of fabric and it wouldn't be as thick. But look how fabulous that's going to look when we're done. And we are going to do strap ends as well, because I just decided we are. The easiest way to sew this is actually to turn the bag inside out. Or on your cylinder arm. We're going to turn the bag out this time. I think the next time I make this bag, we're going to go do it on the cylinder arm just because I can. So I want to kind of start over to the side. I don't want my join to be front and center. We also want to make sure we're on a 4 stitch length, or whatever your decorative long nice stitch length is. And then I'm just going to not back stitch. And I'm stitching an 1/8 of an inch from the edge. If you are new to the bag making, this is still a great beginner bag that teaches curves and stuff, but you could just stitch a 1/4 inch instead of an 1/8 of an inch. It's not so much of a difference, but it's going to make a huge difference. Like, it's such a tiny difference in measurement that you could do an 1/8 of an inch and nobody would know any better. We're coming up to that thick part. So this is where your machine might not want to do this bit. You don't have to stitch it down. You can just have it sitting up if that's what your machine can handle. I don't know if mine just worked. We will find out in a minute. And you'll notice I didn't stitch the pocket shut yet. That is because if you're doing a normal magnet, you could go and install it after we top stitch. Because I wanted a nice top stitch. Now I'm going to hold these tails so that they don't get tangled, because that's always annoying. And then I'm going to just stitch 3 and then back. And that's locked in the new stitches and the old stitches, and it looks super neat. I'm going to show you up close in a second. Can you even see my back stitching? It's right there. But look how, like, it's just neat. There's no, like, stuff around on the back either, which is good. Turn the bag back out. I know we're going in and out and in and out. Yeah. Oh, it's looking fantastic. I'm definitely doing the outer rivet magnet, because that just looks amazing, and I think a little bit of gold there and a little bit of gold on the back would be nice. This is subtle but still cool, and it looks embossed because of the foam in the bag. I'm really quite a fan. And also that's where the connection for your key strap is, and it went through perfectly. So if anybody was worried, don't be, we've got it started. Strap ends! My new favorite gift from Sandra, because she is an absolute darling. Right. The other good thing about us cutting out that stuff before means that this will fit on a lot easier than if we hadn't cut it. The last bit is always the hardest because it's so thick here. So you can see, right? I'm trying to force that on and it's not going. Watch this. Squishy pliers. This is how you can see it in real time that they work. Squish it as hard as you can. I'm going to move down a bit. Do it again. Alright, so that's the same end as 2 seconds ago. And boom! Did you see that? They are amazing. I do highly recommend them. These are all the screws. I've put them in this convenient container because it's convenient. I just wrote on it what color screws go with what. I mean, for the most part, you can guess. Come on. Don't be like that. Screw it in. I think my, I think I need a smaller, it comes with a whole bunch of different ends. I actually think I need a smaller one. That, Phillips head is a bit too large. So we're just going to go for a size smaller, which I assume is this one. I'm hoping this will work better. It's a little bit too grabby and doesn't want to let go when it's finished. Yeah, that one's heaps better. Alright, so I'm going to screw it in. Maybe. Come on. Turn that off. I don't need that right now. Ah, keep pushing the button. Okay, that's not working either. I'll go back to the big one. I didn't want to use the big one because it keeps getting stuck when I'm trying to like screw things, but nope, I'm just threading that. Let's take it out. I am effectively destroying that screw. So we'll just get another one. They always send me extras. I've got so many extra screws, it's outrageous at this point. See, that one went in first time. So now we want to make sure that whatever end we put that one on, we're going to do the same, but we are going to squish this first because I showed you that squishing works, and that's why you buy these pliers. They are a bit of an investment. I don't know how much they are now. When I bought them, they were like $11 something plus postage. I'm sure they cost more now, inflation and all that jazz, but I promise, I believe wholeheartedly that they are worth it. They squish so many seams so well to make it easier and neater to sew. These screwdrivers are also pretty good, especially for your wrists. If you've got sore wrists, just push a button. Alright, let me do the second one off camera. All our ends are now on and look fabulous. So now we're going to grab this bad boy. Now we're going to do something different today because apparently today I'm all about different. So we're going to take the same one. I'm not going to do too wide. We're still just going to, oh, well, I mean, we could do too wide. No, we're going to do one wide. We're going to go back to my original plan. So we're going to do half an inch up like I normally do. But instead of now just doing one, we're going to do 2 rivets. So I'm going to skip a hole and then draw another hole. Then I'm going to count 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to skip a hole and do a hole. So we're going to have 2 rivets because that's fun and I like it. So we draw a hole, skip a hole, draw a hole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Skip a hole, draw a hole. And this is why I love these things. Skip a hole, draw a hole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Skip a hole, draw a hole. So we're going to have 2 rivets on each handle to really kind of drive home the sparkle, I guess. That's why I love this thing. Hole punch. So we're going to pre-punch all the holes before we even attempt to attach it to the bag. Whole bunch of holes to punch, but that's alright. It'll be worth it. And make sure it's right in the center of the hole that you drew. That is important. If you're doing fabric handles, put fray stopper on your holes to avoid any shedding, because we don't want that either. Okay. We need that. We need rivets. I have hundreds of rivets, so we're fine. So let's grab the bag. Now, most of the time these won't just easily go in, and that's okay. So we're going to fold it down. Actually, no, that's the wrong side. I want the join on the inside of the handle. This is something you're going to want to think about because you want your handles to be the same. Then, let's grab some rivets and push them through the first hole. Then we're going to wrap around and push it through the other ones. And they should perfectly line up because we counted them out. And that's why we do these things. I've got 2 different sizes in here. So I know I shouldn't, but such is life. So I'm just sorting it out. So I need 2, 4, 6, 8. They can all go back. Clip them onto the back so that they're joined. So I've now got, look at that, it's like extra blingy. Line it up, squish it down. Line it up, squish it down. Beautiful. Oh, I love it. So then we're going to bring this up and around so that there's no twists in the handle, and then push it through here. Now most of the time you have to kind of angle it or it won't fit. Make sure there's no twists. Oh, this is so pretty. Ah, stop it. And again, there's multiple sizes in here, so we just want to find the ones I'm looking for, which is that one, and that one, and 3, and none of them. That one, 4. Unfortunately, even though I order from the same shop and ask for the same size, sometimes they get it wrong. And I'm just too nice to whinge, because they can all be used. I feel like they're the wrong ones too. The posts aren't long enough. They send me different posts and different widths, and I always order the same thing though. It's slightly annoying, but what do you do? There's not much you can do, if I'm honest. I'm going to put them away before I knock them over and break something. I'll be there for hours sorting out that if it all fell over. Alright, push it through, grab a cap, clip it on, another one, clip it on. And then we're going to, I like to stand up for the most part to do this. I just find it easier to be over the bag, but you can do whatever you like. Oh, that looks amazing. Let's do the back one. So again, whatever you ended up doing on this one, you have to do on this one. So we want the join on the inside, and you always have to put these on an angle to get them through, which is fine. Did I need more. Of course I do. It's alright. Poke them all through. Squish it together with your fingers as best you can. And sometimes you will just need to kind of push the vinyl so it's out of the way to get the cap on. They're not always easy. Like this one, for example, is being a jerk. So I'm going to take my sewel and push the vinyl down around the post. Because if it doesn't want to go easily, we're going to make it. There we go. And then again, I'm going to stand over it and I'm going to squish. And same with the other one. And then we're going to bring it up and around to make sure that nothing is twisted. You also want to make sure that the screws go in the inside so that we just get the pretty. I'm all about the pretty. Well, what's the point? Sometimes extra bling is needed, in my opinion. Push it through. Push it through. Nope, that's the wrong one. That one's too small. There's basically 3 size rivets in this one container. And of course I didn't notice till I poured them all in. It's too late to change it now. There's one. That one's too skinny. There we go. That one. Push it through. Because if your post isn't long enough, it's not going to work out either. I'm going to use my sewall to just push the vinyl down around them because apparently that's needed. It's just this last one. Of course it's always the last one that misbehaves. That's fine. Squish it together. Squish it together. Under the press. Alright. Now you could leave it there, but I am going to put the rivet at the top. It does just help to hold it closed, and it's going to give us the bling. If you wanted to, you could just use the normal one that I did actually originally intend to do, but I have since changed my mind. And I will be using a rivet magnet because I love them a lot. So, to do that, it's really quite easy. What we're going to do is we're going to clip both the layers together so that it doesn't shift while I'm trying to stab the hole, because it will. And I'm going to just stab the hole through all the layers at the same time, because it'll do that. And because I'm lazy. Like, let's be honest, it's a lazy move. So I'm going to take this, line it up in the middle, which is there. Make sure it's down far enough. And punch the hole. You can take these off now that it's done all the layers. And we then need the die sets. Now I've got the large and the small rivet magnets, and unfortunately you do need to get both dies. I bought one size first and then tried to use the dies for the second one. It wrecked it. Proper and totally wrecked it. So I don't recommend doing that again. You do need to buy the individual size for the individual dies. So I'm going to put that through there, clip that on, and then under she goes, and press that. And then we take out the bottom and put in the other bottom. Oops. Poke that through the hole. Put our stud cap thing on, and then squish. Now these ones, see this? It's magnetic. It always holds onto the die. Like, it's strong enough, it'll literally hold the die on. So be tricky, like be careful when it comes out. Now what we have to do is iron the inside down and flat, making sure that you skip the thing. But look at that, it's fabulous. The inside's super colourful. The outside's fabulously stylish. It's not too much, but it's still amazing. And then we've got all the extra bling. And the bling just makes it extra pretty. And I've got my logo kind of subtly on the back, not too big, like I didn't make it the whole back of the bag, that's too much. And then the extra little bit of bling there. I love it. Anyway, that is another way to make this bag. I will see you guys next time.